Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Pratik Gauri, who is the founder of FireChain, which is a fifth generation blockchain ecosystem. Pratik has received many awards and recognitions such as Entrepreneur 35 under 35, Times 40 under 40, Green was 30 under 30, and Asia won 40 under 40. He has built 9 ventures over time, and one of his latest venture has received $21 million dollars in funding in seed round alone. So, hi Pratik, welcome to ELI.
Hi, Priya. Thanks for inviting me. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you.
Uh, I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Yeah, so I call myself an entrepreneur and an investor, but being specific, I am an entrepreneur which is very focused, always been focused on social impact. So a social entrepreneur ideally. Um, what I've been promoting for the last 16 years is a concept of a fifth industrial revolution. And most of my ventures, I've built 9 companies. This is my ninth that I'm building. Most of my companies have been around a concept that I started promoting when I was 16 years old, uh, on the theme of fifth industrial revolution, which I wanted to prove the thesis that you can actually make more money if you do more good to the world. Because when I was growing up, people always used to confuse social impact with charity. And I did not come from a wealthy family. I came from a middle class family. So I always wanted to prove the thesis that it's not enough to build a model which can actually generate more money than a traditional business, and then you're also creating impact. So the thesis was to prove that you can actually make more money if you do more good to the world. So most of the businesses that I've built have been around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, so around health tech, climate tech, renewable, solar, wind. And currently the venture we are building is into the Web3 space, in the blockchain, DeFi, NFT, metaverse space. And it's again a place where again we're trying to amplify the thesis of the fifth industrial revolution, that you can make more money if you do more good to the world. And the goal, my life's overarching goal, which is also the company's goal in the vision, is to actually impact 1 billion plus people positively. That's what I've been trying to achieve in the past 15 years, and I'm still on that journey. In the process, I've represented India and my companies at World Economic Forum Davos, Cold World Forum Oxford, Nobel Peace Prize Forum Oslo, United Nations General Assembly, and I've been doing that for a long time now.
Uh, Before we start talking about FireChain, I would like to set the context for our listeners. So, if you can tell us what is sustainable blockchain and what is fifth generation blockchain.
Yeah, so basically, as you know, there are a lot of blockchains, right? So in blockchains, it's what we've built is a layer one blockchain. So layer one blockchain is basically a record. So what is a blockchain? First of all, it's nothing but a trail of records where all the information gets stored. And that's why people, when you say about the technology, the most beautiful piece about it is that it's more accountable, transparent. There's more trust. So for instance, imagine that I have to send somebody say $100, right? So if I have to wire you $100, and then you have to say spend $20 each on 5 people, if it's on the blockchain, you can easily track everything from the source to the destination. That's why the technology is amazing. um, what's sustainable blockchain? So most of the tech, we've built the world's first and only sustainable blockchain ecosystem. And sustainability, so we basically use the language of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I'll have to first tell you what the goals are. So basically there are 17 global goals defined by the UN, which our honorable Prime Minister Modi often talks about, which we have to achieve by 2030. And if you achieve that, you're basically creating social impact. So the goals are like, for instance, SDG 3 stands for health, SDG 4 stands for quality education, SDG 5 stands for gender equality, SDG 6 stands for clean water and sanitation, so on and so forth. SDG 13 is about renewables. SDG 17 is about partnerships. So, basically we have used that language of the UN. And what we've done is, so basically any blockchain is governed by a consensus mechanism, right? So that's how the blockchain works, through the validator ecosystem. So our validators and our whole governance mechanism, basically the consensus that we use is unique and proprietary in a way that we've embedded 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we have also scraped data from 650 ESG sources. So ESG is basically, environmental, social, governance goals. So we've embedded all that data into the consensus, which basically means that any business that builds on top of us, like any business that uses our technology, automatically becomes sustainable, and you go from a for profit paradigm to a for benefit paradigm. So the goal of the entire ecosystem of fire chain, is to create a transition from the current age of fourth industrial revolution, which has been following a for profit paradigm, to the age of fifth industrial revolution, which will create a for benefit paradigm. And that's why 5 IRE is fifth industrial revolution. So that's a sustainable blockchain where you basically, so I'll just give you an example also. So imagine you and I are running two businesses, and both of us are using fire chain and building on top of it. Suppose you use coal and I use geothermal energy, right? So you would basically have less points, meaning I would have more points. So the score that is arrived, which I said, which embeds data, the ESG data and UNSDG data, would give you a lower score. Suppose you have 50% women in the workforce, I have 30%, so you get a better score because you're achieving SDG 5, which is gender equality. So we are basically financially rewarding and incentivizing businesses for following sustainable practices. That's why we call it the a sustainable blockchain. So that's the agenda.
Okay. Uh, Tell us a bit more about fire chain in terms of what is the scale of operation, how many users or how many nodes are there in the blockchain, and who all are the larger entities who are playing as key stakeholders in the overall ecosystem.
Yeah, so the ecosystem, basically currently fire chain as an ecosystem, basically fire as an ecosystem, which is 5 IRE, fifth industrial revolution, meaning you can make more money while you're doing more good, has 5 components in the ecosystem. So the first is fire chain, which is of course a layer 1 blockchain, which is built on Rust. And as I say, it's unique because we use a consensus which is sustainable, which is financially rewarding and incentivizing businesses for doing sustainable practices. So that's the first part of the ecosystem. Second, we have our own wallet, which is unique in a way that you don't need hexadecimal addresses to transfer payments. You can basically transfer payments without hexadecimal addresses, just on mobile numbers. So basically we are banking the unbanked. That's the USP of the wallet. Then the third, we have our own NFT and metaverse marketplace, where again we are promoting sustainability and sustainable icons. Then the fourth, we have our own exchange, which is only going to promote sustainability. Fifth, we have our own venture capital fund, which basically will fund and incubate businesses which build on top of Firechain, which is a layer 1 blockchain that we've built. So this is about the ecosystem. Now you ask about the end users. So currently we've been focusing on 5 stakeholders which have been adopting us. First is governments. So because of us being sustainable, we have been very well received by the government, and we have in fact made something to impact 1 billion people. So we can't even achieve that goal without partnering with the governments. So we are very pro governments. And the first, let's if you talk about just Indian government, we have partnered around smart policing, predictive policing on our blockchain with the Muzaffarnagar police. We are very close to signing MOUs with the Goa police, Assam police, and Tamil Nadu and a bunch of others. So that's on just the policing side. We are also signing land registration contracts and regarding municipality to get all your land records on a blockchain. So that's on the government side. Just on the in India, we've also partnered with the City of Alliance in the state of Nebraska in the United States of America. So we're getting deeper into the US as well. We've also got the entire agriculture records of Nigeria on our blockchain. So that's another one. So we are deep in Nigeria, and we're getting deeper into different governments. So that's the first stakeholder when you ask me about the adoption. The second for us is Fortune 500 companies. We want to get their supply chain on our blockchain and to make that a for benefit mechanism, because through that it's easier to impact people. As I said, the end goal is to impact 1 billion people positively. We've been working with Huawei and Booking.com, and we will actively are in talks with multiple Fortune 500 companies. Some of their C-level executives are already on our advisory board. In fact, we have the serial entrepreneur from Booking.com, Jeff Hoffman, already on our advisory, and we're getting a bunch of other people as well. So that's on the Fortune 500 side. The third, for adoption, we are focusing on universities. Because see, the adoption of blockchain as a concept still needs to happen, because we are facing a lot of challenges around recruiting good people or good talent for blockchain, for our blockchain. And that's why we've started something called Fire School, in which we've built something called happiness. We've integrated happiness also into it, happiness blockchain, and we have partnered with AICTE, which I think is the High Technology Council body of India, which basically gives us access to 8 to 10 million kids all their academic credentials will reside on a blockchain. I'm flying to Pune a day after, and we're signing an MOU with the Pune University to get 650,000 academic records on a blockchain. We're actively working with a lot of universities to get academic credentials and records on a blockchain, and also teaching kids on how to code, how to build on Rust, and how to basically build a D app or a decentralized application on a blockchain. So we are actively Fire School treated like, if you just talk about India specific, treated like Baiju of the blockchain education in India that we've built. We want to get deeper, and we want to educate kids on how to get deep into this sector. So that's our third component, which is universities for adoption. Fourth, we are also focusing on family offices, which are impact billion-dollar family offices focused on the ESG metrics and UN SDGs and impact. We've partnered with a lot of family offices and are actively trying to do so. Fifth, we are also focusing on celebrities through a donor advice fund model. We have something inbuilt into our tokenomics, which is again something that we've done. We just onboarded the world's number one poker player, also on this, because he has access to a lot of celebrities. So we're bringing a lot of celebrities also on our platform, and the reason we are bringing them is we want to mobilize capital, mobilize financial capital towards sustainability and social impact, and also do marketing for them. So that's what we've been doing on the adoption side. um, when you ask about the nodes, we currently already have 4 nodes operational. We're going down to 14 nodes very soon. Our testnet is going to go live. For people who don't know, testnet is like a beta version. So our testnet is going to go live in a couple of weeks, in February. We are doing our IDO and IEO and going public on the 29th of March on a bunch of exchanges next month. We are also rolling out our mainnet of our layer one blockchain in quarter 2 or quarter 3 this year. So that's also going to go live very, very soon. So that's pretty much, about the adoption side currently.
You spoke about the government and how you're working closely with the government. Traditionally, when blockchain initially arrived, governments were a little apprehensive about adopting blockchain. In fact, the cryptocurrency was one of the key areas where government was showing a lot of resistance. It is across the world, not just one government I'm talking about. The reason was the decentralized nature of the blockchain and the centralized nature of the government. They are kind of uh, from a different tangent altogether. So, having said that, can you tell us how governments are approaching blockchain these days? What is their approach and what is their, tendency towards blockchain now?
So look, there are two types of blockchain that you can build. One is permission and one is permissionless. So when we talk about government, they don't want breach of data, because that's something which can be very, very critical or very, very harmful. So we build, when we work with them, we mostly work on permission blockchains, which is good. Second, I think the biggest skepticism that they were facing was, as you said, regarding the decentralization piece, and also around the sustainability aspect. So I think those were the two big ones, and then I can name a few. But there's, and of course, so cryptocurrency is just a small piece of the entire virtual or digital assets. So the underlying tech. So please understand, for all the viewers as well, virtual assets or digital assets is as a separate class, which also came out in the budget. So they have basically said that you can actually hold virtual assets, which basically means that you can hold cryptocurrency as just one small piece. NFTs is another one, and a bunch of others also exist. So you just don't have to confuse between blockchain and crypto, because the underlying technology is blockchain. Now, that's pretty much about the virtual assets. You can treat it like digital gold, as a store of value, if you're a consumer, if you're an end consumer or a trader or anything. Now when you talk about governments per se, it's so there are a lot of benefits of blockchain, right, which they currently recognize. Like for instance, you can already recognize, like what we are doing with predictive policing, smart policing, is like if you lodge an FIR today, after 5 years, even you can be like, it's a public chain, so you can basically see who against the FIR was lodged. So you can't change or tamper with those records, even if you are the most influential person in the country. So which is great for security of the country, right? So there are a lot of benefits of blockchain, which I think they're embracing. So when you ask what's their stance, they're currently embracing blockchain. And cryptocurrency, they are very, very, if you see the budget, right, they are planning to regulate. There was a tax of 30% that was released on it, so which basically also means that you can hold cryptocurrency. But of course they don't want it to be traded as a currency, because then there is a harm on, and you're not abiding by the RBI guidelines. So basically, if you talk about the government, I would split it into two. If you're using blockchain and if you're just holding virtual assets, it's a great thing. If you are basically trying to use it as a currency, it's a bad thing for even the government and even for you. So they don't want you to use it as a currency. If you use it as a store of values, treat it like digital gold. It's awesome, it's perfect. If you want to use the benefits of blockchain, it's great. And what we have, why governments have been pro us, is because of the sustainability quotient that I spoke about. If you talk about Ethereum, right, or if you talk about any other blockchain, they mostly use proof of work or proof of stake. Now let me get into some specifics here, or some little technical. um, when you use either of those, right, so when you use, say, proof of work, okay, so basically, I mean, you're using computers, so there's a lot of computational power and electricity consumption, so it's not sustainable, right? You're not using renewables. If you talk about proof of stake, it again basically means that if you have a higher stake in the system, you get rewarded, which basically means the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. For instance, if you buy more stakes in the system and I don't have the money to do it, ultimately you validating the node, which basically also means that if you're rich, you get richer, and if I'm poor, I'm not. So the end goal of financial inclusion, which blockchain is empowering the world to achieve, is not being met, right? So basically, if you have to, with us using proof of benefit, which basically embeds the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which also scrape data from ESG sources, which basically make sure you're moving the world to a for benefit economy, achieving social impact, then of course they would embrace it, right? Because then you're actually helping the government. The end goal for any government is to basically empower the citizens and make sure there is more security, and that, and and integrated happiness quotient into a blockchain. So basically we have done a lot of stuff which the other layer one blockchains haven't done, and that is why, I think the governments are ready to embrace us, and you will see that the governments would actually embrace. So I don't think there's ever been skepticism around blockchain as a technology. What they've been skeptical about is trading of cryptocurrency as a currency, right? And that still remains. But if you're a blockchain, so I'm a blockchain entrepreneur. I'm a big advocate of the technology. I'm not saying you should trade it as a currency. So, my stance with the government is pretty much the same, and that's always been the same. So I've never felt, and the reason I built this company, right, was because of the same thing, that governments were very apprehensive to use the technology just because of the sustainability piece. And the same reason, all the five stakeholders I spoke about, why have they not still adopted blockchain technology? Why? I mean, it's been existing for a long time. Why it hasn't been adopted? In the US, there's just 5% of people using cryptocurrency. Why are not the whole people using it? It's just because of the few caveats or the few pieces I spoke about. In fact, I wrote a piece for CNBC on the same piece, that now governments will actively embrace the technology because of what we've built, and that's what we're going towards. So I think it's a big revolution. I think Web 3.0 is actually going to change the world. It's like creating the new internet, right? So when internet came into existence, there were people who were skeptical about it, but then it then took the world by a storm. When social media came in, people were skeptical about it, and then it became a sensation. And the same is happening with blockchain as a technology. I think in the next 10 years, you'll see most of the beautiful pieces happening around social impact, by the way, empowering citizens, financial inclusion, gender equality, clean water sanitation, you name it, and you can do it through blockchain.
Now we would be very happy to learn about your journey as an entrepreneur. So can you tell us about the different ventures that you have built over time?
Yeah, so I've built 8 companies before this. As I said, mostly all of them have been around social impact. So the first company I built was in the edu tech space. The last company I was working with, it's one of the leading impact consultancies. We were in fact incubated at the United Nations, and we've been partners to the United Nations to advocate for the UN SDGs. We were basically instrumental in taking Mission Pani, which is a campaign which is stewarded by Amitabh Bachchan, and which was basically started by Harpic, the toilet cleaner brand of Reckitt Benckiser. We were instrumenting in taking them to World Economic Forum Davos. So as I said, most of my ventures have been either in health tech or climate tech or renewables or solar or wind. And then the impact consultancy was also into this space. And again, this company Fire is again trying to achieve that goal of a billion people, positively at impacting them. So if you talk about my journey as an entrepreneur, right? So I've seen that, the biggest learning I've seen is, don't think about too much about it. Just go with your passion. That's the biggest thing. So if your passion is anything, it could be you want to be a painter, why can't you start a business around and that's what I tell most of the young people I meet, in their 20s, like, if you think you can be a good artist, why don't you start a business around it? Why can't you make a sustainable business model around your passion? Because that would actually keep you up at night, and then actually, when you wake up in the morning, you should feel happy on what you're going to do in the day, right? So that's what people don't do. And I think that's basically like, so if you don't follow your passion, I think it's like committing mental suicide, where you're not following your passion and you're just doing it just because the society says so or your parents say so. I mean, it's one life, so you think anything explore. So my journey as an entrepreneur has been very, very, very exciting, and a lot of learnings. I have failed a lot of companies, by the way. I've had a lot of failed attempts, before a few successful ones. And I think I am more proud, I'm very proud to say that I failed a lot of times, because that actually made me who I am, that made me learn resilience. That really matters, right, when you're building anything. So, and nobody, see, a lot of people ask me, 99% of startups fail, so you're probably in that 1%. And I always say, why can't you build 100 startups, fail 99 and have one successful one? Because those 99 will teach you so much, so much, that no work experience can give you that. So I think, and again, if you ask me about entrepreneur, I'm still actively promoting the concept which I started promoting 15 years back, about the fifth industrial revolution, that you can make more money if you do more good to the world. And I think my end goal is to be, the overarching goal of my life is to actually be able to impact 1 billion plus people positively through the portfolio of companies that I build, either I start up or I invest in. That's what I've been trying to do.
Uh, One more key thing I noticed was the fundraising part. I think you have raised substantial amount of fund at seed stage itself. So can you tell us how you go about finding investors, then educating them about what you are trying to build, and any challenges or nitty-gritties that you have learned about fundraising?
Yeah. So I try to tell you something. If you're building a cool product which is going to really impact people, just think about the product. Don't think about funding. Just think about the product you're building. And if you, I can tell you something. Investors, I wear the hat of both an entrepreneur as an investor. I'll tell you, it's it's harder to find entrepreneurs who are building cool stuff and fund them. So as an investor, the job is tougher than as an entrepreneur. So basically, I think there is more demand of good startups than there is supply. Specifically, and if you talk about the Web 3.0 space or blockchain, DeFi, NFT, metaverse space, investors are crazy to put in money because they know that that's the future, but there are not enough startups. So when you say about fundraise, we raised 21 million in our seed, and we are announcing a series A very, very soon. um, I think we've not had any difficulty raising money, because we've been very focused on building our product. And as I say, we've built the world's only and the first sustainable blockchain, and we want to impact people. So our end goal is to impact a billion people positively. We haven't really looked at the funding side, of course, because we initially bootstrapped it. And then when we went to the market to raise money, it just took us about 20 days to raise about 21 million. So it was very, very quick for us. Um, and the reason it was quick is probably, the product that we built, the investors really liked it. And of course, it's about them reaping a more return. So I think investors are also in this space. They know that, it's a crazy return game. Like, if you invest in our company, if we are valued at 110 million when we started up, we are already, I mean, our next round probably puts us into $1 billion valuation. That also gives you a return of probably 10x. So those kind of returns, if you invest as an investor, if you get, it's very easy to raise capital. So I think I'll also tell you something. As an entrepreneur, there are three types of capital you should always get from an investor: relationship capital, human capital, and financial capital. And it's tougher in those three orders, meaning the most important capital that you need when you're building a startup is relationship capital. The second is human capital. Third is financial capital. The third is the easiest to get. Second is a little hard, first is the hardest, because when you're building a company, you need all the three. So as an investor, whenever we onboard any investor, we the first question is we ask them is, we know you can bring in financial capital, but so many of you you have a lot of money, and you're putting it because of your hidden objective to make more money. Tell us what you can do on the relationship or the human side. So relationship capital is all about how do you expand your relationships and the orbit, because our end goal is to obviously be adopted by all governments, by all Fortune 500s. And when that happens, that's going to basically help us achieve our final goal of impacting a billion people positively, right? So if we have to do that, we need a lot of relationships. So investors need to bring relationships, and they need to come from diverse sectors, diverse geographies. That's very important. Human capital, as I said, our biggest challenge has been to hire Rust developers. It's not an easy task to do. So we've been actively onboarding investors who also have a background into tech. They understand blockchain, and they are techies themselves, or they have funded a lot of tech startups before, so they have access to really good talent pool. Of course, we are organizing a lot of hackathons in universities to make sure that we're getting the best talent on board. We currently have about 45 Rust developers already in our team, but we want to get more. So that's been the second. And the third is financial capital, which is about money. So I think it hasn't been hard. And as I can tell anybody who's listening to this that you can easily raise money. That's not a problem. Focus on product. If you have a good product, if you have your objectives aligned, meaning what you want to do in the next 3 months, or the roadmap that like 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, the future revenue projections, all of them are in place, I think it's very easy to raise money.
Uh, Probably my final question to you. Tell us, what are the different learnings that you have got as an entrepreneur, which we can take away and simply apply to our ventures?
The first big learning I would like to tell it, in fact, the biggest learning: believe in yourself, right? Don't expect the world to believe in you if you can't believe in yourself. Because when you start any business, only you, as the founder and CEO, or and the part of the founding team, know what where you are going to be in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Don't expect the world to know that, right? The world, it will take time for the world to know it when you materialize it, or when you basically are building it. Initially, when you start, only you know where you're going to go. So please believe in yourself, because when you start up, there's going to be a lot of skepticism. Can be by your parents, can be by your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, family, relatives, friends. Don't listen to that. Just do what your heart tells you to do. If your heart is in the right place, if your mind knows where you're going, if you know, like in 3 months from now I'm going to be here, 6 months from now I'm going to be here, perfectly good. Just start it. Don't think twice. And if you believe in yourself, I can tell you, it's just a matter of time. The world will believe in you. It's a matter of time. Second big learning that I've had, don't be afraid of failures. Be proud of your failures. I'm not kidding. Be proud of your failures. I can tell you, there is no successful entrepreneur in this whole world who's been successful without failed attempts. And if they say so, they're lying. I can tell you, everybody has failed. Okay, so it's completely okay to be failing as an entrepreneur initially, but just don't be disheartened, and don't just stop. So a lot of people I've seen, this try a startup, they fail, and then they go back to their job, and then they start working. No, that's not the way to go about it. Then you're not resilient, and you're not even fit to be an entrepreneur, to be very honest, because the biggest skill set of an entrepreneur is to be resilient and keep at it. If you're passionate about something, how can you leave it? Like, then that's not your passion. If it's your passion, you'll keep at it, right? Even if you have a failed attempt, you'll start again, you start again, start again. Like, my thing was social impact. So I started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to keep doing it all my life, right? Because it's passion. I just enjoy it. I'm not doing it for money or any other thing. I'm doing it because I like it. So that's another big one. So um, don't be afraid of failures. Yeah, and yeah, the third one is, nothing is. So a lot of time when you start up, you have chimerical dreams, and people think, oh my god, this is such a dreamy concept. How can you think of creating the next Apple, or the next Facebook, or the next Google? But let me tell you, impossible itself says I am possible, right? So everything is possible. Anything that you think from your head, if you have the roadmap and the team to execute it, everything is possible. It's all a game of mind. It's all about abundant mindset. Don't just have an abundant mindset. Think that you can do it. And if you think you can do it, I'm 100% sure you'll do it.
Well, I think on this note, we have come to the end of the session. But I must say it was a real pleasure and absolute honor to host you, and we were really fortunate to have you on our platform. Thanks for your time, Pratik, and our best wishes for Fire.
Thank you so much, Priya. It was a pleasure being with you on this show. Thank you so much for having me.